this leasehold story that's come to the fore again today. It's been bubbling under for a long time, and if you've been living with it, you'll know that. 4 of the UK's largest house builders are being investigated after what's being described as troubling evidence was found over the way leaseholds were sold. They include Barratt Developments, Countryside Properties, Persimmon Homes and Taylor Wimpey. They face action from the Competition and Markets Authority. Buyers arguing that they were caught in a leasehold trap with rising ground rents and unfair fees. Let's talk to George Lusty about this, first of all, Senior Director for Consumer Protection at the Competition and Markets Authority. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Tell us what you say is going on here, potentially anyway.
So as you say, we found some really troubling evidence, and this really matters to a large number of people. Some of them are finding they can't get mortgages, they can't sell their homes because they've been subject to ground rent clauses that double what they pay every 10 years. We've also heard about people experiencing mis-selling of their homes. They've been told things about how cheap it will be to buy the freehold, and it turns out that's not the case, or told that freehold properties won't be sold on an estate, and actually they are. We're really worried about those. We published a report back in February, and we've now proceeded to the point where we've launched these cases against the 4 firms you mentioned.
And for those living with this, they'll know full well how this works. But for those of us who aren't, how does it work then, this ground rent business? What does it start like, and what is it in some cases developing into?
So if you own your property leasehold, and about 4.7 million of us do across the UK, then you may be asked to pay a ground rent sum every year. That is a fee that you pay to the freeholder of the property, and who owns the land and the property, and you enjoy the lease to enjoy it, usually for a long period of time, many years. We're worried that fee, that ground rent fee, has been taken advantage of, and that some developers have put these escalating ground rent clauses in place, which double the amount payable over every certain period of years.
And to be clear, it's not a service charge. It's different to a service charge that you might pay in a flat in a shared building. Is it typically, or historically, is it a very small amount? You hear of peppercorn rents and the like. Is it typically a small amount, and is it just randomly being inflated?
You're absolutely right. Service charge is separate from ground rent, and historically ground rents were set at a peppercorn level, and in parts of the UK, particularly in Northern Ireland, for instance, they still are. But since the start,
which is a nominal amount, isn't it? A peppercorn,
that's right. Yeah. And indeed, going forwards, the government has proposed that the ground rents for new leases be set at 0, and we strongly support that. But the problem here seems to have started in the beginning of this century, at the turn of the millennium, where the ground rent clauses have been used as a source of money making.
And typically, or not necessarily typically, but what have you been seeing in terms of amounts there? So somebody might buy a property and start paying X amount. What kind of inflation are we seeing?
Well, in the worst examples of these, where, say, a ground rent fee doubles every 10 years, you can find yourselves paying astronomical sums. You hit £1 million after 125 years, for example, if you start with 500. So these can have a huge impact, and it's clearly totally disproportionate to the amount that people have actually paid in the first place, expecting to own their home.
So what do you want to see happen here?
So we're announcing enforcement action. That's the start of a formal process where we want to see these developers make amends for what's happened. We're prepared to take them to court if we have to establish that these terms were unfair and that mis-selling has gone on. Only a court can decide that formally. We hope they'll agree to do the right thing, and that we can get to a really good outcome for affected homeowners as quickly as we can. Thank
you very much for talking to us. George Lusty, Senior Director for Consumer Protection at the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. Just statements from some of the developers I mentioned. Barratt Developments, one of the 4 house builders named by the CMA, says the group is committed to putting its customers first and will continue to cooperate with the CMA whilst it completes its investigation. Taylor Wimpey said it would continue to cooperate fully with the CMA. Persimmon said it stopped selling leasehold houses in 2017 where it owned the land freehold. Any customers of Persimmon leasehold property in the last 6 years have been given the right to buy their lease at below market value, and many have done so, it said, and Countryside Properties said it was committed to resolving this issue to the satisfaction of our customers.